All right, topic 10, lesson 4 is called conflicts in Southwest Asia. Again, I'm simplifying a lot of what's going on. There is so much history of tension and violence and war that goes on. But for the sake of geography, we're just going to kind of go over a little bit of it. So during the 1970s and 1980s, Israeli Jewish people started building a growing number of Israeli settlements in the West Bank, which is a region in that area in Israel, or the Gaza. It's another name for it. So Israeli settlements are places in the West Bank or Gaza where Israelis have settled and built communities. So a lot of these Israelis have moved these settlements for economic reasons. And over time, I think about 2005, they started to withdraw their people because they're trying to keep their people out of Gaza. Okay, so the Israeli settlements in the West Bank are still an area of disagreement right now between the Palestinians and the Israelis. Again, very complicated things. This is a simplified version of it. So Palestinians accuse Israelis of diverting much of the West Bank's water supply. And Israelis say no, that those underground water deposits that are under there, they didn't do anything to it. That the Israelis are abiding by its agreements with the Palestinians, and that the water loss is caused by leaks of water and illegal connections. So basically, Palestinians were trying to say that Israelis were taking the water from them, okay? So over time, Israel started building security barriers around the Gaza and West Bank in the 2000s to prevent attacks on Israel. So they started putting these big old barriers, right? And it's also would separate some Palestinian villages from each other and blocked some of their farmland access, so the people couldn't get to their own farmland. But the barriers succeeded in reducing attacks on Israel, but made life more difficult for Palestinians. So that's just one little snippet of what's going on, of the major issues that they have. So in 2005, Israel withdrew completely from Gaza, leaving it under Palestinian government. And in the next year, a Palestinian group called the Hamas, Hamas, won the most seats in the Palestinian parliament. So that organization is actually classified as a terrorist group. So that's another problem, right? So they've got this terrorist group that's in charge or in power. And, many countries, including the U.S., consider them terrorists. The Hamas fighters took control of Gaza in 2007. So they've been fighting over this area for long, long periods of time. The conflict in Iraq, it has to do with Saddam Hussein. So he was removed from power of Iraq in 2003, but violence still continued. Rival groups were fighting for power. You have civil wars breaking out between different ethnic groups and religious groups. Then you have the rise of ISIS. ISIS is the Islamic State in Iraq and Syria, and it's a terrorist group. It's an Islamic terrorist group. So that started to arise in 2010-ish, 2013, and it became a serious threat. It's a major force in the conflicts all over Iraq, Syria, Yemen, and other places. And you'll hear of these different terrorist groups that kind of pop up over time. So in March of 2011, as a part of the Arab Spring, many Syrians demonstrated against the authoritarian government of the president at the time. The government tried to crush those revolts and opposition and to preserve its power. So they responded with a military crackdown. So that became a civil war just in Syria, 10 years ago. So these things are still happening time after time with so much conflict in the area. All right, that's it for topic 10.